Hello everybody, this is Bronislava from HandMadeRukodelky, and I have my friends here again. I have Kelly, I have Linnea, and I have Afifa. Hey ladies, thank you so much for joining me again. Thank you, thank you. And today's theme, we do have a theme. We will be talking about slip stitches that are presented on Afifa's design. And then Kelly is going to show us some yarn, different yarns that could be used. And Lynette is going to learn because she's our student. So this is what we will be doing today in today's podcast. So welcome and let's get to it. So first I will start with Afifa. Afifa, we need to talk about slip stitches. And I do have actually a couple questions here for you. Have you used slip stitches in other design besides the design that we were talking about last 2 weeks ago?
Yes, actually I have. I have a whole collection of patterns for mini skeins, and pretty much all of the color work in those patterns is using slip stitches.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, sure. I would show it to you if I had it in this room with me. But so in those patterns, I use slip stitches to create more of a mosaic pattern. So there's little blocks and then they're kind of shooting down below the other one. So it's very geometric looking, and it's very different from the way that I use them for this pattern, the Mad Bee patterns in particular. So there's, just to say that there's a lot of things you can do with slip stitches.
Can I ask a question, which is do you have a preference between a slip stitch as opposed to like stranded color work?
No, it's different.
How is it
really? I think for a beginner, a slip stitch is a great way to get into color work and then go into stranded, because you don't have to worry about tensioning quite as much with a slip stitch. With color work, there's that whole learning curve of tensioning your floats in the back so that it doesn't get all puckered. And with slip stitches, I feel like you don't really have to do that as much.
Yes, I think that one of these days we are going to be also talking about the color work and the floats. Okay. Linnea, do you have any question about slip stitches? Or have you ever come across yourself? Have you ever come across slip stitches?
The only time I've really worked with slip stitches, other than just in a generic pattern, heel flapping gusset. There's a specific heel flapping gusset pattern. I believe it's called Eye of Partridge, where it's knit, slip, and then it reverses, and it creates almost like a squishiness to it. But I've never used it in a sweater or any other item, but only in the heel flapping gusset. Okay. That was actually my very first one using slip stitches, but I've never used it in lieu of color work, which would probably have been a lot better than just jumping into color work if I had known ahead of time that slip stitches could basically be the substitute, the stepping stone to get you into color work. Because Afifa's right, that tension it can be maddening, catching floats and whatnot.
Yes.
Can I say something real quick? It's not really in lieu of.
Okay.
It's totally different, because what you can do with slip stitches, you can't really do with color work, and vice versa.
I have to see one then so I can actually make the comparison. I've just never seen it other than Eye of Partridge. So if I were to use, go ahead.
You have my sweater pattern for the Mad Bee tee.
Yes.
That's slip stitches.
Okay. As soon as I finish this sweater, I'm going to jump into your Mad Bee. That way I can actually see it, because I'm better visual than on paper. That way I can actually see it in my hands and see what it does. So does it create even a texture like what I see in the Eye of Partridge heel, where it's there's some kind of a, a lift and a back and a lift and a back over and over versus color work where it's just flush, straight across.
It's a little hard to describe. I mean, I can, if I stretch this out, I can show you. So
There's
basically
texture.
what you're doing is, you're slipping those
Mhm.
over, this is only over 2 rows without working them.
Okay.
So it makes the pattern stand out a little bit. Whereas like you said, in color work, it's all flat. So but you can also do slip stitches and make them look flat. So there's just a lot of combinations.
Okay. That definitely looks like texture, like there's a bump to it if I would rub my fingers against it. I like that. I'll have to try that. Well, I will be trying that when I do your test knit.
Yes, you will.
I just wanted to go and talk a little bit about different types of slip stitches. And as you, Afifa, mentioned, there can be flat and they can be raised. So with the pattern that you have, and the pattern that we already seen also on my hat last time, we are basically making this this raised two raised rows, and then we're making slip stitches connecting them to another raised row versus stockinette, right? But there is another way of doing it where you do not those 2 raised rows connecting it, right?
Yeah, basically the reason that it's raised in our accessories is because it's garter on a stockinette background.
Exactly.
But if it's stockinette on a stockinette background, it wouldn't be raised.
Exactly. Yes. So I don't know, does that answer kind of your question or thoughts, Lina?
It does.
Can you
Afifa says stockinette versus garter and how it pops out automatically. That I can definitely, that I understand. Yes. I don't need to see it visually. I can actually visualize it in my head after her saying it. That works.
Yes. Yeah.
Afifa, question. How do you determine when you're creating a pattern when you want to utilize slip stitches? And which pattern would work best with slip stitches, if that makes sense the way I posed that question?
Well, when I first start working on a pattern, I look at the colors. And this is something that Kelly can probably talk to with yarn selection, is when you're given a palette, trying to figure out how to make each yarn really work well with it and make the yarn shine. So for this pattern in particular, there's 4. And there's 4 different colors, and I decided which one I wanted to be the background, and then I have to decide which one is going to lay behind the slip stitches. And when I was working with it, like I'll do some little experimental swatches, it just kind of worked out. And I was already planning on turning this into a top as well, so I was thinking about the counts of the stitch pattern and how that would translate into different sizes, because with a shawl, you don't have to do that. But when you're designing a garment, you have to make sure that the numbers work. So that's kind of how I came up with this stitch count in particular. It's all about the stitch count. Does that help?
It does. That's a lot of mathematics. That's a lot of mathematics in that.
That's what spreadsheets are for.
That's what I wanted to say. That's why you have so many spreadsheets. When I'm designing something, I am just working with one size. It's either for, I have the little doll that I go for 3 months old, or for myself, my type of size, or my daughter, but I really don't do the spreadsheets. And but I try, if I do it for maybe 2 or 3 sizes, then again, like you said, I have to take in consideration how many stitches in, your repeats you're working with. One more question for Afifa. Before we get to Kelly, she's sitting there, poor thing, nice and quiet, looking beautiful with her beautiful lipstick. When you are, what would you recommend for knitters? Or what would you tell them about slip stitches? Knitters that are new to knitting.
Well, if you've never slipped a stitch before, go to YouTube. And I'm sure that Bronislava has a tutorial on how to slip stitches. And
there is lots of other ones. There are lots of other ones.
That is what I would tell a new knitter, to go to Bronislava's YouTube channel and look for tutorial. And also just to make sure, just one quick thing, to make sure you're slipping the stitch in the right direction and not twisting. Was that your question, Lene?
Yes. Slip purl or slip knitwise, slip purl-wise. I was going to ask you, is that really important? Because normally I just kind of slip knitwise all the time.
You're always going to want, unless it specifically says to slip knitwise, you're going to slip purlwise.
Okay.
Yes, because slipping stitch purlwise, it's basically you're transferring the stitch because you're not knitting it, so you're basically transferring it to a needle, and then when you knit next time, it's that stitch is in a proper position. But if you need to slip knitwise, that's most of the time that I used it, and I'm not really sure Kelly and Afifa, if you ladies agree, is if you need to decrease in a left slant, and that's for basically that's for right-handed knitters. For left-handed knitters, it would be different again, because they would be slipping it also knitwise, but from the left side.
I never thought of that. I never considered how someone who's left-handed.
That's why I make videos, because I have editor, and I flip the videos for left-handed knitters. So when you go and look, you're slipping with the left hand, but for them knitwise is, you know, from other, it's mirror image. Yes.
My daughter is left-handed, and if she ever needs me to fix something, I can't. She hands it to me and I go, your stitches are facing the wrong way. And she's like, no, they're facing the right way for me. So
yes.
It's just really interesting. And I didn't teach her how to knit.
Mm-hmm.
I had somebody who was left-handed teach her, because I was trying to get her to mirror what I was doing. And it was too hard. So I asked a left-handed knitter to help her. And so every time she hands me her work, I'm like, what is wrong with this?
It's mirror image. I had the left-handed students, and I had to go and figure it out for them. It was very hard, very, very, very hard to do it the mirror-wise. And it took me usually really long time before I could explain it to them the proper way, because I'm right-handed as well. But I had to picture it in a different, you know, flip side. So yes, I understand what you are going through when you and your daughter are basically interacting when knitting. Okay.
If you're a left-handed knitter versus right-hand knitter, and once you're done with your garment, because I've never seen a left-handed knitter, does it look different when it's finished? It looks identical. You just don't. You'll see. I guess maybe if you're really trained, like you guys are with the stitches, you'll see if you look close enough that the stitches are slightly different, but that doesn't distort or make the garment look any different than anyone else's.
Okay, I will answer this question unless Afifa or Kelly wants to answer. When you are knitting, when you're right-handed and you're knitting basically from right to left.
Mhm.
But if you're left-handed, you're doing exactly the same from left to right, but you're doing exactly the same thing, exactly the same thing.
So you're not twisting, you're not even twisting stitches. It's all just a mirror, flat out mirror image.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm a left-hander, but I learned how to knit right-handed. And I think, you know, and certainly like in the classes that I teach here, because I'm limited, I'm not Bronislava in terms of the professionalism in terms of teaching. I always teach left-handers right-handed knitting because you're using both hands. And it's awkward to learn how to knit anyway. It's like learning to drive. And so there isn't really, you know, there isn't really a dominant hand. But for some people, it just simply doesn't work. Now, when it came to crochet, I tried to learn how to crochet as a right-hander and I couldn't do it. I don't know what that's about, but.
That has, I think that has a lot to do with writing. Do you write with left hand?
Yes. I do everything with my left hand. My right hand might as well be like a doll arm.
Mm-hmm.
It's fairly useless, but I'm okay when I'm knitting. So, yes. But I throw. So that may also have something to do with, you know, why it works as a lefty. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think that because if you write with pen, you know, with left hand, with a pen in your hand, you need to go, and it's just how your brain works. So you need to have that hook in your left hand, and yes, yeah. When actually it was really wonderful when I discovered that I can go and do the videos, that I can flip them and post them. So I do have a left-handed followers, because they can go and follow my videos. It's great because they are left out. It's not that many of them, but they would be left out.
Yeah.
But because of them, you know, and I didn't do it in the beginning when I started my channel, but when the minute I discovered that I can go and do it in my editor, every single video where I go and work a project, I do it for left-handed as well. Okay.
I'm sending my daughter to you when she needs help next time.
I'll make a video for her and I'll post it on
Perfect.
on my channel. Yes. Kelly, now you need to go and tell us how you would go and choose yarns for Afifa's design. What would you recommend to our viewers?
So often when people come into the shop, one of the things that they want help with, they're bringing a pattern. It has a multitude of colors, which can include, of course, the slip stitch pattern, and they want help choosing colors. So you know, in my past life, when I was in the publishing industry, in addition to the video games and publishing products as well as PC products, I did computer arts back in the day. And so I had the fortune of being educated in terms of color. So, but not everybody has that benefit or that background, or actually can kind of see it. So I have cheats. And at the end of the video, Bronislava will post the website that I'm going to make as a recommendation. It's basically a color calculator. And what that color calculator does is it takes like a color. So this is like a purple. Hopefully you guys can see the color well via the screen. But this is like a nice, strong, almost Prince purple here. So this would be like the main color. And then if you use the calculator, this would come as the predominant complementary color, as like a mustard. And then if you wanted to go with like a monochromatic, that's a good way to introduce something that's like highly variegated or even a speckle in the same kind of color if it calls for monochromatic. Or you can go with like a tone, which is another approach. And then if you're looking at a analogous color, then this like kind of sort of sea glass baby blue would be a really good combination. So that really is how you would say, for example, put, you know, 4 colors together that kind of work in harmony with one another. And this obviously being your kind of, you know, real pop. But there's lots of different combinations of the way in which you can come up with your color schemes. I always like to start with, you know, the dominant color. What is the primary color that you're going to be utilizing? What is going to take up the most yarn? And then start to do, you know, the pops of other colors together with that. Another trick, if you are going for high contrast, is to take a black and white photograph of the yarn, and then you can actually really, really see how much contrast do you really have. Because sometimes you think that you're doing 2 really different colors, but they're so close in tone that actually they kind of, you know, mesh together in a way that wasn't perhaps super obvious when you were looking at 2 colors in hanks in isolation with one another.
They blend together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you don't want that to happen, right? You don't want to blend them that much. Afifa?
Oh, I was just going to ask if you could put that in an envelope and mail it to me.
Sure.
I love the way you've put those 4 colors together. That it makes me really happy to see that palette.
Well, this is my new yarn, so yeah, I'll stick it in a package for you. Thanks. Deal done.
Is there any other combination that you have for us?
I just put these together.
Okay.
I didn't put any other combinations. I think, you know, I don't want to take up too much time.
Well, I wanted you to. I wanted you to do like more than one combination.
I would love to see some more of your new yarn if you can go grab it.
Should I do another combo?
Sure. Yes, go. And
yeah, so I have another yarn combination just to show you some other color ideas. So this is like a very deep wine color. And then if you want like your like a rich variegation that's going to complement. Okay, so that's that. And then your pop. And then make it like spring.
Yes.
So this is, I'll hold these up together, and that's another nice little combination concept for everybody.
Yes, and they kind of, not blend, they just, they complement each other, but they don't really, they don't get lost.
Right. And I think that like, you know, honestly, like looking to nature or finding a fabric that you really love is also just a great way to inspire yourself in terms of color combinations, and a way in which you can do that without getting overwhelmed.
Yes. Okay, so is there anything else you ladies would like to go and discuss?
I have a question for Kelly. So that last combination that you just showed us, would you also help your customer decide where each color is going to go? So how would you make that one work if you were doing a 4-color shawl, let's say?
A 4-color shawl. I mean, it would very much depend on the pattern and what aspect of the pattern you wanted to like have more tonally versus contrast. Would depend upon whether it was color A, B, C, D, or E. Because, you know, these two are actually can blend and be quite similar. And actually, these two could also potentially blend and be quite similar. And this is really your kind of like pop of contrast. So depending upon where that sat in the pattern would depend upon what advice I gave. And whether I would even advise to do something like this color combination and in terms of tonality, you know, with the exception, it's basically all, I don't know whether you can see, but these are all basically within the same family, with this kind of being the root that carries all of the colors. All of the other 3 colors are actually in this. And I happen to know, since I came up with the formulas of them, I know what actual natural dye process I used, versus, say, for example, something like this, whereby you actually have the true, you know, if you went to the color calculator, this is your main color, this is your complementary color, here's your monochromatic, and then here is your analogous. So this was done with a color calculator. So you know.
I do have a question. So these 2 different sets of colors, how would you apply these to Afifa's pattern?
Oh, the Mad Bee pattern?
Yes.
Well, I would probably do this as the main color.
Mm-hmm.
I would do this as the chains because it's the one that really kind of like pops. And then it would be up to me. Actually, with Afifa's pattern, I probably wouldn't do a tonal. I would choose another or a monochromatic. In other words, I would choose a 4th color that simply wasn't similar. Because her pattern, there's distinction between each of the colors. And depending upon whether I wanted to make every color sing with, you know, maybe the purple as the, you know, as the predominant aspect of the shawl. But yeah, I probably wouldn't choose this because it would just blend.
So, so for example, Afifa has the shawl behind her, right, Afifa?
Yes.
Have it behind you. So the purple would be, in this case, would replace the pink.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then what yellow would replace which one in there behind her? Those would be the edges?
Yeah, ultimately it doesn't matter. You could choose any of these. And they would all, you know, sufficiently contrast one another. The only one that I wouldn't put into the mix would be, you know, the monochromatic choices, because Afifa's pattern, each color has its own voice. And so I would probably choose these 3 and then do a 4th color that also
would complement these 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably choose a 4th that was a variegated to put under the 2 poppy colors.
Yeah.
The way that the other 4 that you selected would be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree that these would be perfect for Afifa's shawl.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Color has its own unique identity, and then the variegated would kind of draw it all together.
Yes, yes, yes.
There is science behind it. If you want to get, you know, if you're the type of person that really wants to geek out on this yarn calculator is so much fun. And you know, also there's the creative aspect of just going with what you love and what appeals to you. So
that's most of the time me. Because I love certain shades and certain colors, and like Afifa, last time you said that you always do same combination of certain colors, like the blues, right? And I'm like that also. But we do need to go and stay away sometimes from, you know, and try different colors. Yeah. So therefore, use the calculator.
yeah.
Choose one of your colors and then pop in there on that calculator something that is even that you not attracted to, that it would go, if it shows up on that palette, then you would go and use it anyway.
Yeah. You know, another good cheat, if you're going for something that's tonal, is to go to one of the hardware stores and pick up paint chips. That's also a really wonderful way
Yes.
of kind of combining your colors.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done it long time ago. I had so many chips everywhere. And then every single time I wanted to do something, I would go and look at them and try to, place them next to each other and see how they're going to go and fit. Yes. But I got rid of them. I had too many of them. Well, ladies, that's great. I think that we basically talked about what we really wanted to talk about. It was really great input. Thank you so much, Afifa. Thank you, Lynette. Thank you, Kelly. Anyway, so this is it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to go and see below the videos all the links. Don't forget to like our video, subscribe, and all we Yarntastic Four have to say is learn.
Use great yarn.
Find wonderful patterns.
Knit and crochet.
Actually, I'm going to extend it so that this pattern is free for people who watch this podcast through the end of July.
Okay, very good.
What I'm trying to say is that I'm better.
Oh, that'll work.
Please cut that.
That'll work.
You are fabulous. You're fabulous. I think that our ending is going to be always very funny. We're going to do it so many times.